On September 15, 2025, headlines blared across the globe. Beijing declares Scarborough Shoal a national marine park. The announcement sent shockwaves through international media, with newsrooms scrambling to interpret what this bold move would mean for the region and the world. The declaration, delivered in a carefully orchestrated press conference by China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, was presented as a gesture of environmental stewardship. Officials spoke of protecting marine biodiversity and preserving the delicate balance of the South China Sea's ecosystem. But to many observers, the message was far more complex. China claimed the move would safeguard the fragile ecosystem, highlighting the need to shield coral reefs and marine life from overfishing and pollution. Yet, beneath the surface, the real message was unmistakable. This was about administrative control, not just conservation. Access to the newly named Huangyan Dao Nature Reserve would now require Beijing's explicit permission for any activity, whether it be fishing, transport, or scientific research. The rules were clear, and the consequences for defiance, though unspoken, were understood by all. The official statement was measured, but the underlying threat was clear. China was asserting sovereignty over territory far from its mainland, using the language of environmentalism as a strategic cover for expansion. In Manila, officials scrambled to respond, stunned by a move that seemed to disregard years of painstaking diplomacy and a landmark international tribunal ruling that had favored the Philippines' claims. Scarborough Shoal, long a flashpoint in the South China Sea, was now thrust into the spotlight as the epicenter of a new and escalating crisis. This was not just about rocks and reefs, it was a calculated geopolitical chess move, a signal to rivals and allies alike that China was willing to redraw the map under the guise of environmental protection. The world now faced a critical question. Would it accept China's green justification at face value, or recognize it as a thinly veiled act of strategic annexation? Analysts pored over the language and timing of the announcement, dissecting every word and gesture, recognizing the shoal's sudden transformation into a potent symbol of the global power struggle playing out in the region. The world was forced to confront a new and uncertain reality in the South China Sea, where environmental claims and geopolitical ambitions now collided on the global stage. In the Philippines, outrage erupted. President Marcos Jr. called an emergency meeting. Officials called China's move illegal and a creeping invasion. The declaration was seen as an existential threat to Philippine rights and dignity. Across the country, citizens protested, social media exploded with #Atnang West Philippine Sea, and crowds gathered outside the Chinese embassy. Internationally, the U.S. reaffirmed its defense commitments, calling China's action provocative and inconsistent with international law. The EU, Japan, and Australia echoed concerns, demanding respect for UNCLOS and the rules-based order. The world saw a dangerous precedent. If China could do this at Scarborough, what would stop it elsewhere? The move threatened the foundations of maritime law, replacing it with might makes right. Diplomats and analysts recognized the gravity. China was rewriting the rules, one decree at a time. The world now faced a stark choice: acquiescence or confrontation. Scarborough Shoal had become a global test case. For fishermen in Zambales and Pangasinan, Scarborough Shoal, panatag, means survival, not politics. Its lagoon is a lifeline, a nursery for fish and a refuge from deadly storms. Generations have relied on its bounty to feed families and sustain communities. The shoal's calm waters have saved countless lives during typhoons. China's increasing control brought harassment, water cannons, and confiscated catches, forcing fishermen into poorer, riskier waters. The Nature Reserve Declaration was the final blow. Access was now forbidden, severing a centuries-old lifeline. The economic impact is devastating. Incomes vanish, debts mount, and entire local economies collapse. Boat builders, vendors, and families all suffer as the fishing industry grinds to a halt. The declaration is not just about sovereignty, it's economic warfare against the Philippines' most vulnerable. For these communities, the loss is both material and cultural. Panatag's closure is a death sentence for a way of life. Beijing's official story is one of ecological responsibility, with state media showcasing vibrant reefs and thriving marine life, painting a picture of China as a steward of the ocean. These images are broadcast widely, aiming to convince both domestic and international audiences that China is leading the way in marine conservation. China claims that years of overfishing by various nations have severely damaged the shoal, and that only strict protection measures enforced by Chinese authorities can restore and preserve this fragile ecosystem for future generations. But critics point to a glaring contradiction. China's own massive island-building projects in the Spratlys have destroyed vast stretches of coral reefs, causing irreversible damage to marine habitats and undermining their environmental claims. The so-called nature reserve is widely seen as lawfare, a legal maneuver designed to legitimize the constant presence of Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia, now rebranded as park rangers or environmental protectors. This reframes what many see as military coercion into environmental enforcement, normalizing China's control over the area and justifying the exclusion of local fishermen under the guise of conservation. The real motive, however, is strategic. Scarborough Shoal's location near the Philippine mainland and Subic Bay, a vital military hub, makes it a key asset for projecting power in the region. By controlling the shoal, China gains a dominant position over crucial shipping lanes and military movement, influencing trade and security in the South China Sea. This move completes a strategic triangle of Chinese outposts, further tightening Beijing's grip on the South China Sea and expanding its sphere of influence. The environmental argument, critics say, is little more than a smokescreen, a convenient narrative to mask a broader power play and territorial expansion. The velvet glove of conservation in reality conceals the iron fist of annexation, as China consolidates its hold under the banner of environmental stewardship. Around the world, governments and observers are increasingly seeing through this green facade, recognizing the true nature of China's ambitions in the South China Sea. The South China Sea is the world's busiest shipping lane. Over $3 trillion in trade passes through each year. China's move at Scarborough Shoal signals it could regulate not just fishing, but potentially all passage in these waters. The precedent is chilling. If Beijing can control access here, could it demand permission for global shipping? Such control would disrupt supply chains, raise costs, and threaten the global economy. At stake is the principle of freedom of navigation, enshrined in UNCLOS. China's actions challenge this norm, seeking to turn international waters into a Chinese lake. For the US and its allies, this is an unacceptable threat to global order. For Southeast Asian nations, it's a warning of what could come next. The crisis is not just regional, it's a test of the rules-based order. The world is watching. Will law or power prevail? The legal case is clear. UNCLOS, signed by both China and the Philippines, defines exclusive economic zones. Scarborough Shoal lies well within the Philippines' EEZ. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled in Manila's favor, rejecting China's 9-dash line and affirming Filipino rights. China dismissed the ruling and escalated its activities, culminating in the 2025 Nature Reserve Declaration. This is a direct challenge to international law, an attempt to render the tribunal's decision irrelevant. The clash is fundamental. The Philippines and its allies defend a rules-based order. China asserts power over law. Scarborough Shoal is now a critical test. Can the world enforce the 2016 ruling? If not, China's approach may become the new norm. The stakes are nothing less than the future of maritime law. The world's response will echo for decades. The Philippines responded with defiance, lodging a formal protest and rejecting China's claim. Manila increased patrols around Scarborough Shoal, deploying Coast Guard and fisheries vessels to assert presence and document Chinese actions. The strategy: assertive transparency, publicizing confrontations to rally global opinion. Filipino ships now escort fishermen, risking dangerous encounters. Diplomatically, President Marcos Jr. reached out to world leaders, seeking unified condemnation and support. The Philippines frames the issue as a threat to all nations' rights, not just its own. Legal and political options are on the table, including raising the issue at the UN. Domestically, pressure mounts to strengthen military ties with allies. The government walks a tightrope, asserting rights without provoking open conflict. It's a strategy of defiance, diplomacy, and a plea for a rules-based world. In towns like Masinloc, the cost of China's move is measured in empty nets and broken lives. Once thriving communities now echo with silence, as the sea that once provided for generations has become a source of uncertainty and fear. For fishermen like Roberto Ferrer, Panatag Shoal was a lifeline. Now it's lost. The waters that once promised abundance are now guarded and forbidden, leaving only memories of better days. They say it's for the environment, but they destroy the corals. We only take the fish. How will I feed my grandchildren? Roberto's voice trembles with worry, echoing the fears of many who depend on the sea for survival. The economic blow is immediate. Families lose months of income, boats are sold, and debts pile up. The ripple effect is felt in every home as parents struggle to put food on the table and keep their children in school. Young men abandon fishing for city jobs, breaking generations of tradition. The lure of uncertain city work replaces the certainty of the tides, and the village slowly empties of its youth. The cultural loss is profound. Fishing is identity, heritage and pride. Songs, stories and skills passed down through centuries now risk being forgotten, as fewer hands learn the ways of the sea. Elders fear the knowledge of the sea will vanish forever. Their wisdom, once valued, now seems destined to fade with each passing season. Our sons don't want to be fishermen anymore. The sea is now a place of danger and humiliation. The next generation turns away, seeking safety and dignity elsewhere. Fishermen feel abandoned, caught in a geopolitical game where they are powerless. Their voices are drowned out by the roar of engines and the shadow of foreign ships. We have no weapons, only nets and courage, but courage doesn't stop a water cannon. Still, they return to the sea, risking everything for a chance to provide. The government urges bravery, but on the water, fishermen are alone. Promises of protection feel distant as each day brings new risks and fewer rewards. Their stories are a stark reminder. Behind every headline are real people, paying the price. Each face tells a story of loss, resilience, and hope for justice. The human cost of conflict is heartbreakingly real. In every tear and every empty net, the true price of the struggle for the sea is revealed. China's Scarborough Shoal strategy echoes its playbook at Mischief Reef in the 1990s. Then, small fishermen's shelters became a sprawling military outpost after years of incremental steps and muted international response. The lesson administrative moves paved the way for physical control. The nature reserve is the new shelter, justification for presence, control, and eventual militarization. Coast Guard and militia become park rangers, blocking access under the guise of protection. The world, having seen Mischief Reef's transformation, recognizes the danger. Today's administrative decree could become tomorrow's military base. The urgency is greater. This time, the world knows how the story ends if nothing changes. Scarborough Shoal is not just a local dispute, it's a global warning. The world must act or history will repeat itself on a far more dangerous scale.